It's Bill back again wearing the exact same t-shirt. So you'll have seen from the previous review that I did Saving Mr. Banks, and last night I went to see the new release Kill Your Darlings, which is the new film starring Daniel Radcliffe. It's directed by John Crocatus. It's the brand new debut feature from him. He has never directed before, and it tells the story of the formation of a lot of the writers who were involved in the what's known as the Beat Generation in America. So Daniel Radcliffe plays Allen Ginsberg. We have Dane de Haan playing Lucien Carr. We have Ben Foster playing William S. Burroughs, and there is another guy, and I can't remember his name, but he's very good and he plays Jack Kerouac. And the film itself takes place in and around the early 40s, and it involves Daniel Radcliffe and his I suppose kind of foray into getting into Columbia University, and coming from a rather staid homely Jewish background, and coming into this sphere which is very sort of is going to open up his horizons, and in terms of both his writing and his mind, the film itself, ultimately I think what this film benefits from is strong performances. Dane de Haan in particular plays Lucien Carr, and he plays him in a very intense manner. I think the only thing I've ever seen Dane de Haan in before is Chronicle, and he plays that angsty, sort of angry, kind of tension bubbling under the surface persona very, very well. The scenes between himself and Daniel Radcliffe, they're actually quite charged. There's initially, they're full of sexual tension, and this is something which has been in the news, that Daniel Radcliffe, does play somebody who is, turns out to be a known proponent or advocate of sort of, the freedom of sexual expression, and it's people are sort of uneasy maybe seeing Daniel Radcliffe doing this, but I have to say I applaud him. He's courageous. It is something which I love about Daniel Radcliffe, in that he could have so easily just decided to be Harry Potter, taken his money and done safe roles sort of, for the foreseeable future. But what he's done is he's challenging himself. I went to see him in a play in London a couple of months back, The Cripple of Inishmaan. He was fantastic. He has challenged himself in terms of, doing Equus on stage. He has a number of films coming up this year. One in particular I'm really looking forward to see, Horns, which is the adaptation of the Joe Hill book. He has that film, The F Word. Kill Your Darlings premiered at Sundance and received really, really good reviews. The film itself centres around the meeting of a number of people, in particular Allen Ginsberg and Lucien Carr, and the development of their relationship, and the development and the expansion of their minds in terms of the literature which they're exposed to, and the literature which they want to create. They want to break free from the rhyme and meter of traditional poetry, and they want to, as they say, have this thing they call a new vision, and this new vision challenges the old and sort of brings in the new in terms of literature and expanding the mind. And it's a really, really interesting piece. To be honest with you, the film for me felt very loose. The narrative structure felt quite loose, and for a lot of time I felt it was kind of meandering. Towards the latter part of the film itself, and this isn't a spoiler alert, but I mean the film itself is predicated upon Lucien Carr and his murder of an older man, David Cameron, who he was involved in a relationship with. And I suppose the fallout from that, and how the relationship sort of, the interaction between William S. Burroughs, Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg. It's but that doesn't take place till quite late in the film. So for the first part of the film we're left with a very sort of loose, kind of meandering narrative structure. It's very interesting for the performances, but for the rest of it, it's a little bit, I felt it was a little bit all over the place. And I did enjoy the film, but I felt it could have been structured a little better, could have been a little bit tighter. Daniel Radcliffe's central performance, Allen Ginsberg, absolutely spot on. He's fantastic. If you look up some old pictures of Allen Ginsberg, and a couple of the guys who were doing Beat Generation, who went on to be, sort of proponents in the Beat Generation, he's spot on interpretation of him. I think it's really Dane de Haan's film. He's absolutely fantastic in this. Michael C. Hall plays David Cameron. It's hard to get away from the fact that he's Dexter, and how much he disappointed me in the last season of Dexter, but that's another story. Ben Foster, is very good as William S. Burroughs, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him playing Lance Armstrong in the upcoming film adaptation. I'm not sure is he going to be in the Stephen Frears one or the other one, but I'm looking forward to that nonetheless. Overall, the film is it's interesting, it's wordy, it's in terms of the literature which is referenced, I mean, you know, it is very interesting. I mean, I've never read On the Road by Jack Kerouac, but I actually went out this morning and I bought it because it's something I really do want to read, because this sort of challenging of the establishment, this challenging of, you know, the social order and what you're, I suppose, expected to do and expected to do with your life. This is always very interesting. And one of the scenes in the film whereby Allen Ginsberg, you know, submits a paper and it's found to be very smutty, it's very sort of, you know, completely outside the bounds of what's acceptable for the university that he's in. All of a sudden, you know, his tutor realizes that there is immense talent in there. Now, that's one thing as well. People often cite, like, you know, Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac as geniuses and visionaries, but that's not really explored here. You know, they're seen very much as, you know, human people who, while they haven't fallen into what they're doing, are searching for something. And, you know, all of these characters are looking for something, whether it's affection, whether it's freedom from, you know, family members who have, you know, mental disorders, whether it's freedom from, I suppose, you know, what families expect of you, all of those kind of things. So the in that respect, you know, the film is incredibly interesting. I think that, you know, as I said, there's a couple of downsides. I felt the structure was a bit, you know, narratively sort of, you know, wide and narratively meandering. The main thing you'd go for this movie, I really have to say, is the performances, which are across the board absolutely spot on. They're absolutely excellent. I would urge you to go and see it. I mean, I kind of say that at the end of a lot of the reviews I've done recently. It's a film, it won't be for everybody. It's a very niche thing. It's about, you know, it is about literature. It's about people who, you know, were experimental in what they were doing. So it's not going to be a film that everybody's going to, you know, go and enjoy. But if you enjoy great performances, I think you'll find a lot here that you'll love. Daniel Radcliffe, as I said, you know, I think he is probably the hardest working guy, you know, around at the moment. He has 3 or 4 films coming out in the next kind of 3 months or so, and I'd be really interested to see, you know, his next what he does next. But a good film, not the best film I've seen recently, but a very good film. And the I would say you should check it out. It's not playing everywhere. It's only going to play in a couple of places, but it's worth seeing. If you've seen all the blockbusters which are at the moment, that's fine. But I think this is sort of a niche one, which I would hate to think that would escape unnoticed, because there's a lot of great things to be found here. A few downsides, but a lot of great stuff.